Hello guys, welcome to my first ever video. Today I'll be focusing on the 1MR pre-workout by BPI Sports. The compound I want to look at today is creatine. Surprisingly, creatine was not listed as one of the ingredients within this blend, but I figured due to the amount of questions I get asked by people, I'd just make a video about it. So what is creatine? Creatine is a nitrogenous organic acid that occurs naturally in vertebrates. Its main role is to facilitate recycling of adenosine triphosphate, otherwise known as ATP. If you do not know what ATP is, I suggest you read on it because it has a large role within our bodies. In simple terms, it is very much like the currency system that supplies the necessary energy for specific tasks to occur. The form of creatine we'll be focusing on is called phosphocreatine. The discovery of phosphocreatine was reported by Grace and Philip Eggleton of the University of Cambridge and separately by Cyrus Fisk and Yella Pragada Subbarao, that's a very hard name to pronounce, of the Harvard Medical School in 1927. A few years later, David Nachmanson, working under Meyerhoff at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Dahlem, Berlin, contributed to the understanding of the phosphocreatine's role within the cell. Phosphocreatine, also known as creatine phosphate, is a phosphorylated creatine molecule that serves to resynthesize ATP from ADP by providing the necessary phosphate. Phosphocreatine travels through the blood and can be found within tissues that require high energy. These tissues include the brain tissue and skeletal muscle tissue. The actual synthesis of creatine is far too complicated to talk about in one video. It requires a deep understanding of organic chemistry. You can expect to find interactions such as nucleophilic attacks, shift-based changes, methylations, and formations of tetrahedral intermediates that eventually collapse to more other structural molecules. For this reason, we'll explain it in general terms. Phosphocreatine is formed from parts of three amino acids, arginine, glycine, and methionine. It can be synthesized by the formation of guanidinoacetate from arginine and glycine in the kidney. This molecule is then methylated through the use of S-adenosylmethionine to form creatine within the liver. And then it can be phosphorylated by creatine kinase. This process requires ATP, and it will eventually form phosphocreatine. The waste product of creatine is called creatinine, and we will explore its role in medicine in this video as well. The concentration of ATP in skeletal muscle is usually 2 to 5 millimolar, which will result in a muscle contraction of only a few seconds. During instances of high energy demand for the muscles, phosphocreatine can anaerobically donate a phosphate group to ADP to form ATP during the first 2 to 7 seconds following an intense muscular or neuronal exhaustion. On the flip side, however, excess ATP can be used during a period of low effort to convert creatine to phosphocreatine. The reversible phosphorylation of creatine is catalyzed by several creatine kinases. Alright guys, so as you can see, if you look at the diagram on the right, it pretty much describes what we just talked about with the synthesis of creatine and how creatine becomes phosphorylated and how it supplies the phosphate for ATP. So ATP is this structure on the right. It has a ribose sugar, so the same ribose sugar you'll find in RNA. It has a nitrogenous base, in this case adenine. There are other triphosphates such as a guanidine-based triphosphate, but I don't want to get into that. But you see that this structure contains 3 phosphates, and the last phosphate in this case is very unstable. So through the process of hydrolysis, so pretty much by adding water, the phosphate will cleave off the ATP and it will supply energy for whatever task it may be. So in that case, once you cleave off the phosphate, ATP becomes adenosine diphosphate. So it does not have that very unstable phosphate to supply energy. Creatine, on the other hand, in this case phosphocreatine, has the phosphate group and can donate this phosphate group to ADP. And by using the enzyme ATP synthase, you can reform ATP. Now, creatine kinase, in this case, is the catalyst. So what catalysts do, they're pretty much enzymes. They lower the activation energy needed for a reaction to occur. So if you wait a million years, maybe this reaction would happen, but it would just take such a long time. And if you add creatine kinase as a catalyst, it will make the reaction occur much, much, much faster. We're talking like in seconds, and that's just an example, but that's why creatine kinase is here. And actually, creatine kinase is what cleaves off the phosphate from the phosphocreatine in the first place. It's only ATP synthase that will reattach it to the ADP to form ATP once again. So something interesting to point out is that some people could be deficient in the enzyme glycine amidinotransferase. This deficiency can lead to neurological disorders and degeneration due to a failure of energy metabolism. These disorders include mental retardation, autism, language disorders, and even epilepsy. There's also some research that shows that it can be associated with heart failure. They found that by taking the end product of this pathway, in which case it's creatine, and supplementing with it can lead to positive outcomes in the end stages of heart failure. So what does WebMD have to say about creatine? According to WebMD, creatine is listed as a likely safe supplement if taken orally for up to 5 years. Now, most individuals run phases and are likely to cycle off. Creatine is often taken at 3 milligrams to 5 milligram doses. Some may load the creatine, which I highly do not recommend. Companies want their consumers to load creatine due to a quicker saturation rate, which will show its effects a lot sooner. When taken by mouth in high doses, creatine is possibly unsafe. Some concern that it could harm the kidney, liver, or heart function. However, a connection between high doses and these negative effects have not been proven yet. Creatine can also cause stomach pain, nausea, diarrhea, and muscle cramping. Now, there are reports of kidney damage with creatine use, such as interstitial nephritis. Patients with kidney disease should avoid this supplement. In similar manner, liver function may be altered, and caution is advised in those with underlying liver disease. Studies have shown that little or no adverse impact on kidney or liver function from oral creatine supplementation is possible. So what does WebMD have to say about creatine? Creatine is listed on WebMD as a likely safe supplement if taken orally for up to 5 years. Now, most individuals run phases and are likely to cycle off. Creatine is often taken at 3 grams to 5 gram doses. Some may load the creatine, which I highly do not recommend. Companies advise this because they want their consumers to feel the effects a lot sooner. Loading the creatine will obviously saturate the muscles, but it can lead to unwanted side effects. When taken by mouth in high doses, creatine is possibly unsafe. There's some concern that it could harm the kidney, liver, or heart function. However, a connection between the high doses of creatine and negative effects not been proven yet. Creatine can also cause stomach pain, nausea, diarrhea, and muscle cramping. Now, there are reports of kidney damage with creatine use, such as interstitial nephritis, so patients with kidney disease should avoid the supplement. In similar manner, liver function may be altered, and caution is advised for people who have underlying liver disease. Studies have shown little or no adverse impact on kidney or liver function from oral creatine supplementation. In 2014, the European Food Safety Authority published a record which stated that oral long-term intake of 3 grams of pure creatine a day is risk-free. A 2003 study on athletes who took creatine for 21 months found no significant changes in markers of renal function. And a 2008 study on athletes who took creatine for 3 months found no evidence of kidney damage during that time. So a review found creatine to have no effects on liver or kidney function in over months of supplementation in both young and old populations. However, authors still caution against using high doses of creatine in those with impaired kidney and liver function, and further research is required. Alright guys, so the last thing I want to talk about in this video is creatinine and its role in medicine. Creatinine is the waste product of creatine, and it's used to give us a rough estimate of how well our kidneys are functioning. Now, the way we do this is by taking the blood urine nitrates, which are the waste products of proteins, and creating a ratio with the creatinine. So these two metabolites are actually produced at the same rate in the body, but the way the kidneys deal with them is different. Now, if you take a look at the structure I've drawn out here, the piece on the right is called a glomerulus, and it filters everything smaller than a protein, and it does it at an incredible rate of 180 liters a day. Creatinine pretty much flows in the blood through the afferent arteriole, and a lot of it gets absorbed into the glomerulus and becomes part of the urine. Some, of course, will not get absorbed and continue in the bloodstream. Blood urine nitrates, however, are lipid soluble, so this property allows them to leak from the glomerulus back into the blood. So essentially, you'll start in the blood, enter in the afferent arteriole. Some will continue in the blood, while a lot of it will be absorbed into the glomerulus. But due to this lipid soluble property, not all of it in the glomerulus will make it into the urine. Some will be reabsorbed into the blood and continue flowing. So what does this cause? This pretty much creates a ratio where there will be more blood urine nitrates in the blood than creatinine. So the way that we look at this in medicine is that there should be a 10-to-1 ratio. So the 10-to-1 ratio between the blood urine nitrates to creatinine in the blood. This is considered normal. If there's excess blood urine nitrates, that means that there's a low GFR, low glomerular filtration rate. So pretty much things are going too slow through the tubules that they have a chance to leak and be reabsorbed more into the bloodstream. So if this will cause a ratio of roughly about 20-to-1, and this is considered pre-kidney failure. Now the last ratio we can have is where the blood urine nitrates are less than 10-to-1, and this will result when the blood urine nitrates just flows directly through the blood and doesn't even reach to the kidneys to get filtered. So it would have almost a flow rate exactly equal to the creatinine in the blood. This will result in full kidney failure because the kidneys are almost uninvolved in this situation. Well, there you have it, guys. I hope you learned something today about creatine. Tune in more for upcoming biology and medicine videos. I'll keep breaking down the 1MR supplement by BPI Sports. And yeah, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up.